Recently, to escape the terror of rethinking my own past, I decided to rewatch Smallville. There was something about the plot lines that I remembered from the old WB teen drama that gave me a thrill that I haven't experienced since Sunday mornings in college, which is when I'd be hearing my more interesting friends' Saturday night stories. When I first watched Smallville with my dad, who doesn't like watching TV shows that get too sad, he made us take breaks in between seasons because he couldn't handle how sad Clark got over the course of the show. It was a show for the couple where one side loves Dawson's Creek and the other side loves Superman, in that it mostly wanted to be Dawson's Creek, but the main dude was Superman. Smallville started off as a teen drama about Superman's early days growing up on the Kent farm. It was really melodramatic, but to be fair, it was also a really interesting and fun take on the Superman mythos. But I'm gonna focus in on all the dramatic plot stuff today because that's what I went back to the series for this time, and boy did I get more than I bargained for. Smallville wasn't just dramatic, it was kind of the perfect encapsulation of what TV dramas were at the time, especially dramas airing on the WB and CW. To put Smallville in a little bit of context here, it aired alongside Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Our only hope of survival
To each generation, a Slayer is born.
is in high school.
Turn up the music!
Charmed,
They're off to an Amazon paradise where boys are toys. Evan Marriott guest stars.
and Supernatural.
Dad's on a hunting trip, and he hasn't been home in a few days.
Supernatural.
So it was considered among that ilk of TV. The kissy monster ilk. It's 10 seasons, most of which have about 22 episodes, which are all 45 minutes each. Trying to watch the whole series at once felt a lot like cramming every plot point any person could ever come up with all into my head, leaving me with no firm memory of what I actually saw, but the vague notion that I've lived a full life. It's unapologetic television, trying to balance itself between the teen drama it wanted to be and the Superman show the public seemed to be craving more and more of as it went on. In the end, it was a beautifully crafted mess of a story that could only have existed on weekly TV. So I'm just gonna go back over the plot points here and talk about why they may or may not have worked. I don't know, this is normally where I would try to spin into the title, but the title is Smallville is Unapologetic TV, and I said that, so go ahead, go to the intro. Man, I miss theme songs. Smallville's intro was nothing flashy, it was just titles, actors, creators. But when all that was set to Remy Zero's Save Me, it became a work of art. It matched the tone of Smallville so well that it was only ever beaten for Perfect Match by Scrubs with, ironically, Superman by Laszlo Baines. I also really like intros that are clips from the show, and I really like how in Smallville the actors are framed in front of the clips in the first few seasons. I think that it's a small effect, but it is really effective. And when the show got like to its 5th season and its 100th episode and all that stuff, it had this whole big change update to the intro where it's all these cool effects that I really like as well. I think they're supposed to be like framed in the like Smallville logo. I think. I don't really know. It's cool. Whatever it is, it's cool. I could never get enough of it. When I was a kid, I would watch compilations of Smallville's intro when I couldn't actually watch the show, just because seeing the intro got me so hyped for the episode to follow. Ooh, hyped might date me. It seems like one of those things where it's like hype is gonna be a date, so excited me. It excited me. No. That's weird. Go back to hype. I know that part of the reason that theme songs went away was that streaming services made it harder because you had to listen to a theme song over and over again on a binge. But I don't really think that's a problem when your theme song is as catchy as Save Me by Remy Zero. The premise was simple at first. The show wanted to explore Clark Kent's teen life in Smallville. Turned out he was just kinda Superman. He fought supervillains with his burgeoning superpowers, which he kept a secret from everybody he loved. The key difference between this and other Superman stories is that he's a lot messier about it. See, Superman usually has a pretty effortless time keeping his secret. It's kind of something he does with a small wink to the audience most of the time. Well, anybody who's winked like that knows that it's not a skill you come by easily. Well, winking is, but Superman must have trained his lying muscles if he wound up being so talented at it. And TV runs on drama caused by secrets. So Clark and his parents were all desperate to make sure nobody ever found out that Clark was an alien. Something that they sucked at. First off, the secret was really only from Clark's friends, as soon as they were unconscious as usual, he would let the dangerous kryptonite mutant know immediately. Most of them wound up in an asylum where they essentially turned Clark into a legend. A legend that never left the asylum, apparently, because evil people are good at keeping secrets in the Smallville universe. But Clark would get mad anytime his friends even thought he had a secret, which was a horrible way to make people think he didn't have a secret. Hey Clark, you seem a little fidgety. I'm not fidgety. Oh, well, I guess nothing's wrong then. It makes sense that comic Superman doesn't rely on tantrums as much. They don't even really work for Clark. One friend furnished a whole room with Clark stalking toys, and all he did was yell. I suppose that was Clark's best friend, though, Lex Luthor. Since this is a YouTube thing, I have to clarify I'm not being sarcastic. The show is actually about Clark and Lex being best friends at first. Their friendship in the first half of the series brings a key element of tension to the early stories, given that they're famously not friends. And what made it work is that Clark and Lex weren't just believably friends on the show, they were the benchmark for friendship. But they both just had too many daddy issues to make it work. Clark and Lex were so close that even when Lex had caves that would fully give him access to Clark's secret, Clark made no attempt to even hide the fact that he was down there all the time looking into them. He wanted to work with Lex at one point to decipher the caves, which were about him, because he was horrible at keeping a secret. Unless it came to his love interest, Lana Lang, who bared a lot of the teen drama elements of the show. She would give all these speeches about how teen life felt like the world was just burning down around you, usually right after Clark had just left a burning building. And she and Clark spent the majority of the show being almost in a relationship, but not quite, because Clark lied to her face again. Mix in with that she was also constantly fighting her and Clark's friend, Chloe Sullivan, because Chloe was also in love with Clark, and it was Lana's fault that Clark couldn't care less. So the three focal points in the beginning were Clark, Lex, and Lana, who provided plenty of ongoing tension. It was a tragedy waiting to happen, as anybody who knew anything about the Superman lore knew that Clark and Lex weren't going to stay friends, and that Clark and Lana weren't going to end up together. Because of that, it felt like you were tuning in to slowly watch a fire start. The show wasn't even all that invested in the superhero stuff at first. Clark basically fought a meteor freak every week because there was nothing better to do in Smallville. His secret wasn't even a big deal at first. Most of the actual tension was taken up by the fact that he and Lana liked each other, but Lana had a boyfriend who she didn't really like that much. She's like literally going on dates while she's with him, and like it's every scene from the jump. Like Whitney, her boyfriend, is supposed to just be like kind of a douchebag, but you can't help but notice that he's just kind of getting disrespected the whole time. Lana also developed a friendship with Lex after he bought her a coffee shop. And I don't know how to say this to you guys, but if you're a teenager and somebody buys you a coffee shop, that's a red flag. That dude will fake a pregnancy, then fake a miscarriage, all to get you to marry him. You better run. Once her boyfriend decided to go off to war, though, there was nothing stopping Lana from being with Clark. Except, of course, Clark. Clark tried to tell her that there were things that he had to keep secret, but for all Lana knew, that just meant that she couldn't know why he was randomly making out with Chloe in front of her, or, you know, any other woman he came across, why he was constantly at the scenes of several crimes and murders, and why he disappeared to Metropolis to go clubbing that one summer. So by her second year knowing Clark, she's usually just pissed at him. I think I kind of get why Clark didn't say anything at first though, because when he told his best friend Pete Ross, Pete then turned around and almost exposed that secret every single chance he got. Sometimes he was brainwashed, once he wasn't, which sucked because then Clark wouldn't play basketball with him. Basically, in high school, Clark just kind of seemed like a druggie to anybody who didn't know he was out there throwing supervillains into walls every night. He disappeared often, got randomly sick to the point of crumpling on the floor, and would have large stretches of time where he would behave erratically, getting angry when you asked him to explain himself. Adding to his list of bad ideas for keeping his own secret, he also worked at the school newspaper, where his nosy friend Chloe Sullivan also worked. She wanted to know his secret so bad she actually partnered with the series villain Lionel Luthor at one point. But for the most part, the first 3 years of high school were quiet for Clark outside of the, people with superpowers attacking everyone all the time. Most of the drama was character stuff, people's parents leaving, people having to go into witness protection program, people going into streetcar racing, things that happened to you, me, and our friends. The whole time Clark basically considered his powers a burden because they made him different from everybody else. And also, his dad almost had a heart attack anytime anyone found out. Or even almost found out. Someone should check his heart. But he also had a strong moral compass and couldn't let anyone get hurt, even if it meant hurting people's view of himself. So he was basically Spider-Man at first, although except for late rent payments and bad dates, it was more getting his friends kidnapped or making his mom miscarry the baby that his spaceship got her pregnant with. I stopped taking notes like midway through the series because I realized I was just summarizing the plot because it just kept on seeming so crazy to me. Like, none of that even touched Lex's storylines, which were just constant betrayal and backstabbing from anyone who breathed the same air as him. We also found out that his mom killed his baby brother because she hated his dad so much and that he took the fall for it. And just for good measure, the only time he ever got close to knowing Clark's secret as his friend, he also got sent to an insane asylum because he found out that his dad had murdered his grandparents. It makes sense that at a certain point in the series, he just kind of spends all his time doing lab experiments. You wouldn't want to spend too much time alone with that. Lana wasn't having a much better time either, as even though she kept on saying she didn't want to be the damsel in distress, the story kept making her one anyway. I mean, I don't even know if it's damsel in distress stuff. Like, I think just terrible stuff happened to her, like her boyfriend going to war and dying. She also watched her parents die at a young age, and then her aunt who took over taking care of her got her barely halfway through high school before she left. Then she basically taught Clark how delicate people's feelings could be by letting him smash hers over and over again into millions of little tiny pieces. All because he's just kind of a bad liar. Dude, people got mind controlled in Smallville like every single day. You couldn't just say that that happened like literally any time you needed that excuse. Yeah, Lana, I got mind controlled again today. Oh, you too? Chloe too? Pete too? It left Clark a lot to deal with, as he wanted to be there to help his friends, but they didn't really seem to want that help unless he was also willing to tell them his secret. Lex, in a weird way, ended up being his reprieve from the more dramatic stuff a lot of the time. As even though he too wanted to know Clark's secret, he usually didn't ask, he just snooped around behind Clark's back. But they had a brotherly dynamic. If one of the brothers was super rich and the other brother had absolutely no problem taking advantage of that. But it was torture because the whole time you can kind of start seeing how the cracks are forming, how Lex is realizing that Clark doesn't trust him, and how Clark's realizing that he's kind of right not to. There was so much cheating, lying, and backstabbing by the end of Season 3 that it was hard to imagine it could get much worse as Season 4 started. But Clark said fuck that, or whatever the Superman alternative would be, and really kicked it into high gear senior year. As did everybody around him. Before getting into all that, have you ever noticed how all those high schoolers on Smallville were fully grown adults? It never really bothered me much watching it because I don't really care about authentic looking teenagers. Plus, it was just what shows were doing back then, giving adults backpacks and calling it teen dramas. So when I was a kid, I did absolutely get scared by how Clark and Lana and all his friends looked in season 1. Because I was 13 years old, and so when I saw a bunch of what was supposed to be 14-year-olds looking like models, I got concerned because I didn't have a lot of runway to get to look like Clark Kent in a year. Luckily, it was around this time that my dad finally explained to me that TV was fake and that those were actors. An optimist would probably point to child labor laws as the reason why they would cast adults in teenaged roles. I'm pretty sure it was just so they could plaster hot people all over their channel, though. I wanted to collect all the promotion for Smallville just so I had it at hand in case I wanted to use it in the video, and a ton of the promotion that I found was just the actors spinning in a void and seducing the camera with their eyes. I hope somebody out there who just never heard of Smallville before or since was flipping through their channels one day and saw that, because they probably think Smallville's a reality TV show about hot people and small genitalia. Anyhow, just thought that was worth pointing out. Back to the middle of Smallville. The first 3 seasons of the show have more of a creepy small town vibe, whereas starting in season 4, everything really becomes life or death. Sexy life or death. Clark finally became a little confident and became the quarterback for his high school football team, despite the massive advantage he had. Lana started dating a dude who turned into a gym teacher who then also turned out to be part of some sort of Illuminati that was looking for Clark. And it was an Illuminati that Lex's father started, so Lex also became obsessed with both revealing Clark's secret from the Clark side and now from the Illuminati side as well. Chloe found out Clark's secret after Pete left, and she does such a good job hiding it that you really started to wonder why Clark was still hiding it from Lana. I guess Clark was wondering the same thing because after high school, he finally does tell Lana. Psych! Lex ended up getting her killed over that, so Clark went back in time and stopped Lana from finding out his secret. By lying to her face again. Now Lana could keep singing the sad secret song for seasons more. And when that decision ended up getting his dad killed, Clark finally had to kinda cool off on the whole just embracing all that cool alien stuff. This was all a part of the 100th episode of Smallville, which was a perfect celebration of this dramatic-ass show. Clark and Lex's nasty-ass breakup drove Lex to drive Lana into a truck. And after Clark saved her by turning back time, his fear of hurting people ultimately drove Lana to the arms of the man that Clark had saved her from. It's a really good episode too. It's a climactic payoff to the stories that had been bubbling for 5 seasons. So when earlier his social life and slowly growing confidence was taking up a large portion of the show, after his dad died, that sort of stagnated. He was really sick of Lex's shit by this point. They weren't hanging out anymore. And Lana had just decided to marry Lex because, wait, what? See, again, that's why I warned you. It happened to her, too. The pregnancy miscarriage faking thing. And Chloe and Clark have a lot of DC shit to contend with, as the introduction of Lois Lane, Martian Manhunter, and Green Arrow started dragging Clark kicking and screaming towards his destiny. It was around this point that the show started to become more of a balancing act. While part of it was still committed to the character drama unfolding at its center, another part couldn't ignore the larger DC universe that was just waiting to be explored. The show had already started exploring Clark's Kryptonian heritage, as well as letting him cross paths with other future heroes, but in season 4, they really start ripping the band-aid off. There was magic magic, there were clones, there were other DC heroes already operating, albeit mostly in leather. Even Clark was having trouble keeping up with it all while also trying to juggle his relationship with Lana, which was probably why it took them like 3 more years after high school to figure out they didn't work. Lex, on the other hand, couldn't wait to be evil. While he was originally kind of trying to open himself up to people and find another place to belong, now he had been betrayed so many times that he would rather do the whole fake pregnancy thing with Lana than ever make a genuine connection. So it seemed like the only thing that stories on Smallville wouldn't do at this point was actually put Clark in his underwear and let him fly. The Luthors were cloning people, Lana was getting possessed by a witch, Clark was using Kryptonian artifacts that casually bended the laws of physics, and his mom was also flirting with one of the Luthors. At one point, the show was just kind of going crazy. It was a lot, and sometimes it didn't leave room to explore everything it introduced because, again, since it was TV, it had to be normal by the end of the episode. So somebody was always knocked out, had their memory wiped, or made a vague apology, which stagnated the idea of character growth a lot in the series. I mean, imagine trying to become a different person, but also you're just losing weeks of your life on a regular basis. In the middle of the show, the fun was almost in seeing how crazy these characters' lives could get and still believably go back to normal. It was kind of endearing watching them deal with all this enormous shit, these problems that literally left them beaten to a bloody pulp, and still find the energy to start the next episode. It also felt a lot like the first glimpse at what would become the standard CW television show. Shows like The Flash and Arrow had similar things happening throughout their run, trying to balance character melodrama with comic book lore. Though for Smallville, it was a metamorphosis from the original vision, and it came at the cost of the stuck landing of all those things they introduced up front. Once Lex was chasing artifacts and growing people in labs, it really didn't make much sense that he was still friends with Clark. But it seemed like their final falling out was kind of lackluster, with Clark just taking advantage of the fact that he was depowered to prove that Lex was crazy for thinking that he was hiding superpowers. And then they're just, I guess, not friends anymore. Clark showing up to Lex and Lana's wedding on red kryptonite is awesome, though. I think that that's just like wish fulfillment for people whose best friend married their high school crush, I guess? And Lana and Clark never really got that moment of realization where they understood that they couldn't be together or that they weren't really right for each other. Lana just sort of became more and more understandably obsessed with revenge against the Luthors, you know, because Lex faked that pregnancy, and also I forgot to mention Lionel blackmailed her into marrying Lex once she found out all that stuff because he was gonna kill Clark, I guess. I don't know. It was a crazy show. So by the end of the show, I think it was shedding a lot of what it was originally trying to be in favor of what it thought it could end as. After all the cult stuff wrapped up, Lex ended up dying and Lana ended up leaving the show. And those characters went at the same time as the original creators of the show, leaving Smallville to wrap up as kind of a more traditional Superman show. With the two loves of his life out of his way, Clark finally started to get a handle on things. So he was less the focus of a lot of the dramatic plot points, although he and Lois Lane still do get plenty of unnecessary drama to start off and end their relationship. Not end their, you know, I don't know why I said that to you. If you're watching this and you don't know what happened, why? I don't know, I'm pretty interesting, aren't I? Yeah, no. Keep watching. Sorry, I'm not trying to question you guys for watching the video I made. I hope you're liking it. Thank you. Clark got his job at the Daily Planet, started flirting up Lois, and finally went to Kryptonian College to learn how to use all his superpowers. In his final years before becoming Superman, you finally start to see how our sad little boy will end up being the hero from the comics. And at this point in his life, he's found priorities beyond just hiding his secret, like stopping every leftover life form from his planet from murdering everybody on Earth all the time. Clark had his life so together at this point point that Chloe had to start making some seriously terrible decisions in order to keep the show's drama going. She started hiding a Kryptonian death monster from her fiancé so that she could fall in love with him. Then, after the death monster killed her fiancé, she started putting cameras everywhere and not trusting anybody with anything, even though she was the only one who was really doing anything untrustworthy. And she started faking her death and all this stuff. I don't know why Clark wasn't, like, constantly worried about Chloe in those last few years. Dude, your best friend is very clearly crumbling here. I know I said earlier that all that was missing was the underwear and the cape, but now it really is all that's missing. Clark is doing every other Superman thing in the book. He also met a bunch of the Silver Age heroes who had been operating for years. Most of his friends are already operating. Everybody is already kind of doing the DC Comics thing. And Clark is finally seeing that comic book world that's operating outside his little town of Smallville. His little town is your little super town. In a way, the comic book world almost pulled him out, putting Lana in a Kryptonian battlesuit in order to smush any chance the two of them had at being together again. Which was such a comic book ending to what was initially such a, like, drama plotline, like such a character drama thing. And no, it's not. They didn't figure out anything about each other. It's a kryptonite suit. In the end, it seemed like Clark's biggest lesson was just learning that he couldn't control everything. It mirrored his struggles at the beginning of the series, even though those struggles were more emotional and these struggles were more interdimensional. It turned out part of how Clark became Superman was that the world outside his personal life just became too loud for him to keep ignoring, so he started ignoring his personal life. The same way that the show kind of stopped addressing the more deep character stuff in Clark when it started having to address the wider DC world around it. I originally wasn't gonna say much about the Smallville season finale because I hadn't much to say. I didn't think I'd found anything dramatic enough to really cover about the series finale for the topic of the video. Which is strange because the series finale did feature Martha coming back right as Clark was about to sell the farm, Lex Luthor returning from the dead, and Lois almost canceling her and Clark's wedding. Now, I don't like admitting that I didn't notice something, so I'm actually gonna blame this on the fact that the drama changed. And the series finale highlighted the differences. The drama in the first few seasons was sort of like watching a toxic relationship play out. You've seen why it won't work for a long time, and now you just think that every new slight will be the thing that finally pushes them to end things. But they don't. It just keeps getting worse and worse. Of course, this toxic relationship had like 8 people in it. In contrast, the last few seasons' drama felt nothing like any kind of relationship. It felt more like floating in the ocean during a storm. One moment feels like you're calm, everything's beautiful, you're as close to happy as you can be, and then the next, you're thrown into a pit of darkness and despair which becomes unescapable. The finale was all about Clark and Lois's wedding, and so to start it off with Lois doubting the wedding was just like, oh, come on, we're right there. But that was a lot of the later seasons of Smallville. Again, I'll bring up that Chloe cheated on Jimmy Olsen, not Jimmy Olsen from the comics, his older brother with the same name. It's weird. Chloe and Jimmy were fantastic together, and then she just makes a bunch of terrible decisions with the death monster. So the drama felt less like it was attached to the unfolding arcs, and more like it kind of just came in sporadically when the TV needed tension. Which in a way was the most unapologetically TV it got. You want your drama there, there's some drama for you. Yeah, the main bad guy is back, and he killed his sister, who then erased his memories. Yeah, I bet you didn't see that coming. But as I said before, it was mostly because the show was no longer going for the unfolding character drama. Most of the characters were towards the end of their arcs. They needed to be able to get somewhere happy. So all the drama in the finale really is only there so that Clark can get over it one last time and show how much he's changed, because throughout the finale, he's kind of handling things way better than he has any other part of the show. And then the actual draw to the story is seeing that he is finally ready to be Superman. I really liked Smallville's finale. I liked all the fan service, and I liked getting to see Clark get to that point that we've been waiting for him to get to the entire time. It just wasn't about the drama anymore, so the problems didn't need to be seeded for 5 seasons or whatever. And I know technically a lot of the problems were seeded for, I guess, however many seasons, like the idea that Clark is turning against the Kent farm heritage only to come right back to it at the end. Like, I get there was a lot of arc stuff in there, but you know, it's not the same drama as, oh, I'm best friends with my arch nemesis and in love with a girl who's not Lois. Like, it's the opposite problem by the finale with Lois and Clark that Lana and Clark had at the beginning. The tension killed us with Lana and Clark because we knew they weren't gonna end up together. But the tension between Lois and Clark in the final few seasons just didn't work as well because we knew they were gonna end up together. That and Lois Lane had kind of a weird character shift around the final few seasons to give the drama a little bit more leeway. So she started acting a little bit more like a lovesick sort of girl for Clark towards the end, which was the cause of like a lot of the issues that ended up happening. And it was especially weird because we know they're gonna end up together and that Lois is confident and gonna do awesome things and doesn't really need to worry about whether or not she's got Clark. But she figured that out too. And you know, I really like Tom Welling and Erica Durance as Lois and Clark. Swap those. Okay, that's what I have to say about the finale. I will let you guys get back to my conclusion. My point is, Smallville was kind of batshit insane, but I think that that's only when reviewed as one complete package outside of context, like I just did. Compare it to a show on the same network, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was operating at the same level, doing the same amount of episodes, and had kind of opened the door for shows like Smallville. You can tell when watching Buffy how considered and planned out a lot of the story arcs are. Characters on Buffy made decisions that made sense for their characters based on things that had happened in prior episodes, and slowly built their way through character arcs in a satisfying way. But that show was also dramatic. The characters went through some wild shit and you never knew what was gonna happen next. Smallville seemed like it wanted to match that energy, but with less a focus on the overarching narrative and more a focus on the episodic movie thing, making each of their individual episodes feel like self-contained little movies in their own right. So it's fun to watch the writers and crew try and top themselves dramatically or visually, and then have to come up with a way to deal with that in story in the next episode. Poor Lana was put through so much crap that honestly, she's one of the only superhero love interests turned vigilantes that I completely understand. The longer Smallville went on, the less it seemed to know exactly what it wanted to be, but it never stopped operating as hard as it could and trying to be the best it could be. I think a lot of the drama could be grueling and repetitive, but that was only because the writers, and as a result, Clark, really had trouble letting certain things go. When characters did bad things in their overarching relationships, they had to deal with them. If TV was music, Buffy was like a concept album, and Smallville is like a jazz improvisation. And I like it a lot. It's certainly interesting to see, as it's a show that I'm not sure would be able to operate the same way if it was airing today. With a drastically longer wait time for a reduced number of episodes per season, writers really need to make sure they know what they're doing with their characters, because they have less time to do it, and we have been waiting longer. You don't have a ton of time to fix broken characters, and anything that you do will be analyzed to death because there's less of it. Having a filler episode could be the nail in the coffin of a TV season these days, but in Smallville it was like 99% of the season. And it's so worth it if you're feeling overwhelmed with the drama of your own life, because nothing like Superman having to be told week after week that he's exhausting. I guess Scrubs was wrong. I'm not no Superman. I'm yes Superman. Go watch. No, I don't care if you watch Smallville. Go away from me though.